Food prices are on the rise, and I know a lot of us are concerned about how we are going to keep our grocery budgets under control and how we are going to absorb the rising cost of food. One of the ways I have mentioned before can be a big money saver when it comes to food is learning to cook most or all of our meals at home, and also learning to cook a little bit more from scratch. If you have been on the fence about scratch cooking, I am going to show you some really easy recipes and hopefully convince you that it's not as hard as it seems. If you watch my channel, you know that I am no stranger to convenience foods. Maybe using a few shortcuts, a few frozen items, maybe a few pre-seasoned or packaged items, and then kind of doing the semi-homemade thing for our meals at home. Because sometimes my time is worth more than my money and I'm able to budget a little bit more for those conveniences. But as food prices are rising, if we find ourselves with just a little bit of time, sometimes we can save quite a lot of money, especially if we haven't been accustomed to cooking most of our meals at home and doing scratch cooking. But I do realize that sometimes making a commitment to cooking more at home, and especially making more things from scratch and not using as many store-bought or convenience items, can be, you know, kind of challenging. It can be kind of daunting to think about it. So I thought that we might come into the kitchen today and make a few things, and hopefully I can convince you to challenge yourself in the kitchen to do a little bit more scratch cooking. I promise it's not as hard as it seems, especially if you pick just the right recipes. We are going to make a homemade white sauce, sometimes called a bechamel sauce. And it sounds really complicated, but it's actually very simple. There are 3 ingredients: butter, flour, and milk, and then you just season it with salt and pepper to taste. And the reason why this is a great one to have in your arsenal is because you can make it from stuff that you typically have on hand in just a standard kitchen, and you can use it as a base to create so many different sauces that you can use with different starches like potatoes, rice, pasta, but you can also use it to create sauces for vegetables or for meat. You can add cheese to it to make cheesy dishes. You can add Dijon mustard and some different seasonings to it to make sauces for fish or meat or vegetables. And I'll show you actually how I'm going to finish it out today using just some other things that I have hanging out in the kitchen to make a really delicious pasta dish. My own personal ratio is 1 to 1 to 4 butter, flour, milk. So I'm going to be using a 1/4 cup of butter, which is 4 tablespoons, a 1/4 cup of flour, and 2 cups of milk. Let me show you what I'm doing. I have my butter in my pan here. It is over medium-low heat, and I've melted that, and I'm going to start whisking in my flour. This is called a roux. When you mix the butter and the flour, you kind of want it to form a little bit of a paste. It will turn kind of golden in color. You can already see that it's doing that from the butter. But I still want that to heat up over the medium-low heat for a minute or so before I start adding my milk. And I did heat my milk in the microwave for 30 seconds to kind of bring it up to room temperature. I just think it works better if you're not putting ice cold milk into your pan. And you want to use a whisk for this. I'm using a silicone whisk so that I don't scratch any of my pans. And you just want to keep adding your milk a little bit at a time. Sometimes it reaches the consistency that you want before you're finished adding your milk, or sometimes you may want to add a little bit more and kind of thin it out. It sort of depends on what you're using it for. And as you play around with using this as a base for a sauce, you will definitely learn the way that you like it for various and sundry dishes. And really, when it comes to cooking and cooking from scratch, a lot of times it is about experimentation and just trying until you get just the right result for you and for your family, because sometimes in different kitchens, on different stoves, with different utensils, things are going to cook differently. But I try to make it as smooth as I can as it is heating up, because once it really starts to heat through, it will continue to thicken. I'm gonna go ahead and season mine with about a teaspoon of salt and some cracked black pepper. Okay, I have been stirring this for about 2 minutes. It does not take long at all, and you definitely do want to stay with it because this is a kind of thing that is really easy to scald, so you can't really walk away from it, but fortunately it doesn't take very long. I mean, look at that beautiful consistency there. And the great thing about this is that now I have this really delicious sauce that I can add things to and create all kinds of dishes, as I talked about earlier. So let me show you how I'm going to finish this one up. I'm going to add a can of tomatoes, petite diced tomatoes, and I'm adding half a pound of ground sausage. This is Italian sausage, just half a pound. I saved the other half for another day. I browned this on the stove earlier, and it is going to add a ton of flavor to this dish because sausage is already seasoned. If you watch my my channel, you know that I really like to use sausage in dishes in order to add a lot of flavor without having to use a lot of meat. And I have already cooked on the stove 12 ounces of pasta. You absolutely could use a full pound of pasta if you wanted to stretch this a little bit farther. I'm just using 12 ounces because I find that 12 ounces cooked is just enough for my family. Although I probably will be sharing this with another family. I'm going to be taking this to another family tonight who I know could really use a meal, but we're going to taste test it too. This has heated through nicely. I've been stirring it for a couple of minutes over medium heat, so I'm going to go ahead and add my cooked pasta. I'm just going to stir that all together and make sure that it's combined and that the pasta gets heated back through. Now you could at this point pour this into a casserole dish and then top it with cheese, and then you could put that into the oven and kind of make it like a pasta bake if you wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and add the cheese right here in the pan, stir it together. This is 1 cup of shredded mozzarella. You could use a different kind of cheese if you want. Like I said, the beauty of this sauce is that it's so versatile. Look at how amazing that looks with all of the melty cheese and the tomatoes and a little bit of sausage in there. And seriously, this came together in probably less than 20 minutes. So easy, 1-pot dish. You could pour it into a casserole dish and heat it up later on if you wanted to, but I'm just going to try a little bit of this. And I know I've said it many times before, but I wish that you could smell this. I wish there was smell-o-vision and you could smell how tasty this smells. Okay, this pasta right here is one of the best things I have made in a while. This is absolutely delicious, so simple. I'm kind of sad I'm sending this on to somebody else. When we think about saving money from scratch cooking, I know a lot of people think about making bread from scratch. And bread can be really delicious and really budget friendly whenever we're making it from scratch, but it can also be very fickle and very time consuming, and it can be kind of frustrating whenever we're first starting out trying to make homemade bread. I would say the same goes for rolls and biscuits, which are a little bit easier than like a yeast bread, still require a little bit more time and they're kind of messy. I think a good jumping off point for a really easy bread to make from scratch is cornbread. I'm getting ready to whip up a batch of really easy Amish sour cream cornbread. I will leave the recipe linked in the description box. And one of the reasons why I like cornbread is because it's pretty easy to mix together. It doesn't make a huge mess. It comes together quickly. And usually I have the ingredients for this on hand. Chances are if you have a stocked kitchen, you probably have the ingredients for this. You might need to buy some cornmeal, but cornmeal is pretty inexpensive. It lasts a long time, just like flour and other things, as long as it is stored properly. So I feel like this is a really good recipe to have in your scratch cooking repertoire because cornbread goes with a lot of things, and I feel like the leftovers are really delicious the next morning for breakfast. So give this recipe a try. I'll leave it linked in the description box, and hopefully you enjoy it as much as I do. One of the other things I think it is important to think about as we cook and prepare more of our food at home is investing in some really good quality cookware. Misen is sponsoring today's video, and I'm so delighted to be working with them again. I have actually been using some of their chef's knives for a couple of years now, and recently I purchased 2 of their stainless steel pans. And interesting story, I had actually purchased a well-known stainless steel brand of pan, and I actually sent that pan back whenever I realized I could purchase 2 stainless steel Misen pans for half the cost of that one name brand pan. You've been seeing that new 3-quart saucier and that 5-quart rondo that I've been using in my videos for a couple of weeks now, and you've of course seen my Misen chef's knives, which have really been my go-to knives for the last couple of years. And recently Misen sent me their carbon steel pan, and this is a really interesting pan. It is similar to a cast iron skillet in that as you cook with it, it traps little particles of oil, and that helps season the pan to create a natural nonstick coating without any added chemicals. But the Misen carbon steel pan is a whole lot lighter than a cast iron pan. This pan came right to my doorstep, and it came with instructions, very clear instructions for what to do before you use it for the first time in order to season it, and also how to care for it. Like I said, I've been using Misen cookware for a couple of years now, and I've been very impressed with the quality quality, and I think it's really affordable. Plus, they have a deal for my viewers today. When you follow the link in the description box below and you use the code Mindy130, you're gonna get 20% off of your order. Investing in some good quality cookware can make all of the difference whenever we are trying to learn and grow as home chefs. And investing in quality also means saving a little money in the long term, because we're not gonna have to keep replacing, you know, cheap, inexpensive pans all the time. We might as well get some good quality stuff that we can use for years and years. And the Mise en Carbon steel pan specifically is designed to last a lifetime whenever you use it and care for it appropriately. So again, thank you to Mise en for sponsoring this video. Visit the link in the description box and use the code Mindy130 for 20% off of your first Mise en order. Is anybody out there a chicken teriyaki fan, or just teriyaki in general? For many years, I was buying teriyaki sauce like in a bottle or as a marinade or something, because I was thinking it was something really difficult to make, but it's actually not. I will leave a link to a recipe in the description box. We're gonna make some today. I'm gonna make some really easy chicken teriyaki on the stove. I'm going to have mine with rice and broccoli, but if you want another idea to go along with this, I made some really delicious hibachi noodles a couple of months ago for a video. I will see if I can hunt down that video and leave it linked in the description box, and also a link to that recipe. It was another one where it just uses pantry ingredients, and it was so easy and so delicious to make. I am going to cook the diced up chicken in a pan over medium heat with a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper. I want to make sure that the chicken is completely cooked through, and then I will set that aside. And to make the sauce, I will use half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of soy sauce, a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of ground ginger, about a teaspoon or two of minced garlic, and then 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And all I need to do after I cook the chicken and remove it and set it aside is whisk all of these ingredients together and pour them into my pan and let it simmer over low heat until it starts to thicken, and then I can add my chicken back in to heat through, and it will be ready. That's it. So easy. Okay, so this right here, the chicken teriyaki, also really, really good. I think that I made the sauce just a tad too thick, so I would probably cut back on the cornstarch, or maybe add just a little bit more water, or maybe a little bit of broth to kind of thin it out just a little bit, because it's a little bit thick, but it is very, very flavorful. So the plain rice and the plain broccoli with just salt and pepper, that goes really well with this. And that sauce was so easy to make, and I already had all the stuff on hand to make it. Definitely a keeper, and I will link the website where I found that recipe in the description box below. If you are starting at the beginning and you are just trying to figure out how to stock your kitchen to cook more meals at home, don't feel overwhelmed by spices and seasonings and sauces and think that you have to run out and get everything all at once. I feel like you can build that stock kitchen really gradually by just picking up a few things each time you go out and grocery shop. Personally, I would start with salt, pepper, oil, and flour. I would also see if I could manage to keep milk, butter, and eggs on hand as much as possible. From there, I would move to the powders: chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, and cinnamon. And then also Italian seasoning is one that I use quite a lot. And those are seasonings that usually come in store brands or generic, you know, house brands for around $1 a bottle at places like Walmart and Aldi and even Target. Then I would move on to some sauces and condiments like ketchup, Dijon mustard, soy sauce, Worcestershire, and probably some kind of vinegar. And then I would work on finishing up my baking pantry. So sugar, brown sugar, baking soda, and baking powder, the kinds of things that you can use to make baked goods whenever you feel like doing that. You could also take the tack of getting some all-in-one seasonings, things like Tony's Creole seasoning or Lawry's seasoning salt, or some house brand of that particular kind. There are lots of all-purpose seasonings out there if you wanted to just go that route for seasoning your food. And when it comes to more specialty ingredients, things that I don't use a whole lot, I'm talking about bay leaves and ginger and maybe thyme and rosemary. I mean, those are things that can come in handy, but I typically only buy those when a specific recipe calls for them. And then once you have your spices and your condiments and your seasonings and your pantry and your refrigerator kind of stocked with those basics, you'd be surprised how infrequently you really have to purchase those things. I mean, you only have to restock whenever you run out. So for things like milk and eggs and butter, obviously you might be restocking more often, but a lot of times those seasonings are gonna last you a little while, and once you get them stocked, it won't be as much of a financial commitment to keep them in stock in your kitchen. But again, I feel like you can do that a little at a time and just pick up a few of those items. Like I said, I kind of gave you the order in which I would stock those things in my kitchen, and just pick up a handful of them each time you go out grocery shopping, or maybe save a few dollars back from each grocery trip so that you can buy those things and gradually build up your kitchen staples. I hope I have convinced you that cooking more from home and even scratch cooking is achievable for just about anybody. I hope I have inspired you to give it a try, and don't forget to check out the link in the description box. Head over to Misen and get 20% off your first order with Misen whenever you use the code Mindy130. See you guys again soon.